A man addressing an unseen crowd. Big strong boys for farm work, he says. 400. 700. 700. 800. The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 apiece.
This footage, obtained by CNN, is a scene from a modern-day slave auction in Libya, where 3 men were sold for the equivalent of $800 US. These men are migrants who fled war-torn and harsh conditions in their home countries to seek a better life in Europe by way of Libya. Their stories are not unique. Every year, tens of thousands of people arrive in Libya, either escaping conflict in sub-Saharan Africa or seeking better economic opportunities just across the Mediterranean. The UN estimates that there are 700,000 migrants currently living in Libya. This influx of migrants has led to a concomitant influx of human traffickers, those promising refugees passage across the sea for the unimaginable price of selling off everything they own. And while those of us in the West have been aware of and horrified by the images of overcrowded boats capsizing during the journey and hundreds at a time dying at sea, a recent clampdown by the Libyan Coast Guard has inflicted a new horror on the already suffering migrants: enslavement. Smugglers, unable to turn a profit by transporting these humans seeking a better life, have turned into masters. And the migrants and refugees, these humans, have turned into slaves. Escaped or freed slaves, only emancipated after a hefty ransom from their families, say that these auctions are taking place in at least 9 locations across Libya. Though emancipated former slaves still bear the scars, both literally and figuratively, of surviving such an atrocity.
Merciless beating. If you look at most of the people here, if you check their body, you see the man get beaten with electric. Even your boot, or they took something like a sharp object. Understand? Most of them lost their life there. I was there. The person who came to buy me give the man money. They take me home. So the money was not even much.
Since this footage was released last week by CNN, Libyan officials have denounced these slave markets, launching a formal investigation into the practice. And a horrified Rwanda is now offering refuge to these enslaved migrants. And while cracking down on the Libyan auctions themselves and taking in their victims are crucial steps in abolishing this abominable and antiquated practice, slavery remains a much more widespread problem than most of us realize. In 2016, an estimated 45.8 million people were enslaved around the world. According to the Global Slavery Index, the slave trade in some form exists in 167 countries, which is about 85% of all nations, and the US is no exception. Last year, it was estimated that America, home of the free, is actually home to about 57,000 slaves. How, in 2017, are we still allowing humans to be bought and sold like chattel? The number of people currently living in slavery is more than triple the total number of Africans kidnapped and sold into slavery between 1525 and 1866, and more than 10 times the number of slaves living in the US in 1860. We are moving in the wrong direction to the point where we are now condemning 45.8 million people to suffer one of the most unconscionable, abhorrent human rights abuses in the history of the human race. To combat the scourge of human slavery, governments need to take serious action. They need to ensure and protect the rights of all their citizens, and they need to provide basic necessities like food, water, and health care to prevent migrant and refugee crises in the first place. And in the meantime, they need to welcome and protect populations fleeing conflict and human rights abuses in their home countries. We cannot stand idly by while our brothers and sisters around the world are enslaved and treated like property. Today, more than 45 million people worldwide are being denied the most fundamental of freedoms. And if the global community fails to act to end this unspeakable evil, we not only abrogate our responsibility to our fellow human beings trapped in bondage, but we become complicit in their enslavement as well. We must raise our voices and demand freedom for those who can't. Raise your voice by sharing this video and spreading awareness about this epidemic, following me at Cranston. And as always, thanks for watching TYT.